There's a well-documented phenomenon in behavioral psychology that most people encounter backwards. We wait to feel motivated before we act. We assume the feeling comes first. That clarity, readiness, or confidence has to arrive before we can move. The clinical evidence points the other way. Action tends to generate motivation, not follow from it. Nick Trenton draws on this directly, and it reframes what overthinking actually is. Not a thinking problem, a doing problem. Today, we're looking at how behavioral activation works and why swapping contemplation for aligned action is one of the more practical moves available to an anxious mind. Welcome to the PathToCalm. Break overthinking with behavioral activation. Do what you can with what you have where you are. Theodore Roosevelt. Big idea? Overthinking is fed by excessive introspection. Break this cycle of passivity and withdrawal by re-engaging with the outside world. The solution to overthinking is not more thinking. It's mindful, meaningful action. On the road to recovery, there can be a strange moment when one almost wonders, what am I going to do now if not overthink? Overthinking is often underdoing in disguise. The irony is that as our minds start to quieten down, it may dawn on us just how much more time and energy we had previously sacrificed to rumination, looping, and endless analysis. The feeling of emerging from the world of thinking into the world of doing can be exhilarating and a little strange. Behavioral activation, or BA, is a helpful framework to lean on here, even though it's traditionally used to treat depression. The core principles of this therapeutic model are simple. Action precedes motivation. Motivation isn't necessary. We don't need to wait till we feel better to act. If we act, even if we don't entirely feel it, it will eventually lead to changes in thoughts and feelings. Withdrawal and avoidance worsen the problem, but we can change everything by approaching and engaging. Our environment can provide reinforcement. The more we engage, the better we feel, and the more we want to engage. If you're a habitual overthinker, you more or less live in your head. The trouble with that is that your own thoughts, feelings, and interpretations have nothing to feed on except themselves. They twist in on themselves in self-referential spirals, and there's nothing to challenge or push against them. These loops tighten and become stranger, more anxious, and less anchored in reality. However, if you turn outwards and actively engage with the world, it's as though you bring some fresh air into the stale room of your mind. By interacting with your external environment, you begin to have a more balanced, more realistic conversation with reality compared to the one you may ordinarily have in the privacy of your own mind. You establish healthy loops. You step outside of your head and engage. You feel pleasure and reward. You want to do more. You've not just reduced rumination, you've increased functional, adaptive, and meaningful action. You've replaced an unhealthy coping mechanism with a valuable life skill that will give you the chance at creating a life you actually want to live. The answer to the question, what am I going to do now if not overthink, then becomes, you're going to get out there and live. Too many overthinkers get trapped in solutions that are really just more of the same problem in disguise. Introspective talk therapy, self-analysis, meditation, journaling, and endless contemplation. Passive withdrawal. Yes, even if it's called self-care. The real solution may lie in precisely the opposite direction. Instead of retreating into our own mental worlds, BA asks us to connect meaningfully with the real world around us. The goal is to work from the outside in and re-anchor yourself to your world in ways that are genuinely fulfilling. Broadly, the process is as follows. Initial assessment. How are you currently spending your time? Honestly track your daily activities as well as your overall mood levels. Reconnect to values and goals. Overthinking poses as a solution, but usually takes us further away from the things we actually care about. What you do stems from what you care about, so take the time to clarify what those things actually are. Make a plan. Instead of passive overthinking, actively construct a schedule where you progressively attempt small activities in line with your values. Review your progress. After some time, assess your schedule and your mood levels. What's worked? There is evidence that BA is at least as effective as CBT, especially when combined with elements of mindfulness practice. Present moment awareness and acceptance plus meaningful action equals a powerful combo. How to be your own behavioral activation coach. Though a trained mental health professional can certainly walk you through the process, you can easily apply BA principles to your own life right now. At this point in the book, you should have a growing ability to recognize and label overthinking when it appears. To practice BA properly, stay alert, stay active, and stay grounded. A few principles to remember. Just do it. There will never be a right time to start. You don't need permission or approval. There's nobody coming to rescue you or do it for you. And you don't have to delay until you're feeling positive or motivated. Action first, emotion follows. You can be anxious and still act. You can be doubtful and still act. Ready is a conscious decision, not a feeling. Life is not what you think and feel, it's what you do. Impact matters more than intent. Daniel Kahneman once said, "Nothing in life is as important as you think it is while you're thinking about it." Don't be a philosopher, be a scientist, and go out there and test your ideas. Take the step into life. It's not entirely true that knowledge is power. Instead, as Tony Robbins says, knowledge is only potential power. Action is power. Thoughts are just electrochemical events in the brain, but action is what changes our world. Action is what connects us to other people, and action is what shapes our identity according to our values. Step 1. Do an honest activity appraisal. As an overthinker, you may feel busy, but that activity might be inside your head alone, while your actual life is marked by inaction. For a week or two, track how you are actually spending your time, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. What are you doing with your life in a very practical sense? At the same time, keep track of how you feel. Draw up a spreadsheet or keep a log where you note down exactly what you're doing, not thinking, every waking hour of the day, and your overall mood level, say out of 10. After a week or two is over, have a look at your data. Tally up how many hours you spend working, watching TV, going to the gym, spending time with family, playing computer games, etc. You might like to create a pie chart to see the relative proportions. See if you can identify any patterns and connections between activities and how you feel. What are you doing when your mood is the highest or lowest? What activities tend to come before mood changes? Step 2. Explore your values and goals. The next step is to carefully consider who or what matters most to you. The reason for this step is obvious. Action is good, but not just any old action will do. Action that is in alignment with values is what moves your life forward and makes it satisfying. You don't need to overthink it though. Just become curious. When did I feel proudest, happiest, or most fulfilled in life? What was I doing? Who do I admire most and why? On the other hand, who do I judge or condemn and why? If money was no object, what would I do with myself? If other people's expectations and opinions didn't matter, what would I do with myself? The times I felt worst in my life, what was missing? What would my perfect day look like? What would I want my obituary to say about me? If I had one lesson to teach everyone, what would it be? These questions can point you to the things that really matter to you. The next part is the most interesting. How do your findings in step 1 compare to the values you've uncovered? Are you actually living the kind of life that someone with your values would live? For example, you may notice that even though you value simplicity, sincerity, and calm, you spend exactly 0 hours every week doing anything that could be called simple, sincere, or calm. You may say that you value family time, for example, but when you tally up what you actually do each week, you spend 10 times as many hours gaming, scrolling, and reading online news articles that rile you up. Step 3. Make a plan and schedule action. Even if what you discovered in steps 1 and 2 wasn't all that encouraging, don't worry, you're on the right path. The next thing to do is gradually introduce value-aligned mini-actions into your daily schedule. In previous chapters, we explored the power of taking any action to get out of your head. Go for a walk, do a grounding exercise, or reach out to a friend, for example. With BA, however, your activities are a little more targeted and speak directly to your values and goals. In effect, you are addressing overthinking by slowly replacing it. You swap out the time you'd spend looping and spiraling with real-world activities that actually make you feel good. Important, the goal is not to give yourself a new life overnight or accomplish impressive feats. All you're doing is starting. Let momentum build. The truth is that at first, you probably won't feel like doing these activities. Your mind will tell you that they're boring, uncomfortable, stupid, or unlikely to make a real difference. Guess what? You don't have to argue with these thoughts, because remember, action precedes emotion. Act, even if you don't feel motivated to do so. When you act, you start up a relationship with your environment, and that environment in turn acts on you. In time, you'll find these activities a little more rewarding, and you'll want to do them more. But the initial goal isn't to create good feelings, it's just to get started. Example. Let's say you've identified certain values around service, protecting the environment, and community. You decide that a good action would be to pick up litter in your neighborhood. You make a plan to carry a small plastic bag with you so you can pick up litter whenever you see it while out walking. You schedule this for 3 nights a week at 7 p.m. during your after-dinner walk, 30 minutes in total. Important, continue to track what you're doing day to day and how you feel. Step 3. Practice the 2-minute starter rule. BA takes time, it takes patience and commitment, but it's the small, gradual changes that end up making the most impactful and lasting difference. At first, you may not want to do your scheduled activities. That's okay. This is simply inertia, and it's normal. Agree with yourself that when the scheduled time comes, you'll start and do just 2 minutes. Usually, once you're over that 2-minute hump, you're more willing to continue. If you find yourself overthinking and spiraling at some other point in your daily routine, remember these mini tasks and try one there and then, even if it's just for 2 minutes. It might not be 7 p.m., But if you're feeling strung out, step aside for a quick walk to pick up some litter. Overthinking often collapses in the face of movement. Don't argue with yourself, make excuses, feel guilty, analyze things, or start telling a story about why you failed. It's all irrelevant. Just get out of your head entirely and connect to an action you already know has value. Step 4. Reflect. After a few weeks of taking value-driven mini actions, you should have some data. What you did, how you felt. You've introduced some new activity. Now is your chance to see what these behaviors have activated in you. Has your overall mood changed? How did you manage to achieve the mini activities you scheduled? In general, how do you feel after taking values-driven action? How does this compare to what you predicted you'd feel at the time? Over time, you will see your life slowly changing before your eyes. There's less and less time spent passively ruminating, and more time spent in active engagement. What's more, you should be able to see that, despite your grumpy, anxious brain predicting otherwise, taking action genuinely feels better. The old dogma says, overthinking is useful. I have to overthink. Overthinking is what keeps me safe and sane and feeling okay. But if you follow the BA protocol for a few weeks or months, you'll actually prove to yourself that this is just not true. The more you act, the better you feel, whether you're motivated at the time or not. The next time your brain says, "Hey, stay here and ruminate with me. Withdraw a little and let's churn over this old idea one more time," you will know that that path ultimately won't make you feel good. And you'll know that getting up to do something active will make you feel better because you've already proved it to yourself. What action is and isn't. Before we conclude, let's explore a sneaky trap that sometimes catches overthinkers. Take a look at some of these mini activities. Rework my essay. Go over the vacation plan. Prepare for the meeting tomorrow. Tweak that email. Research more about XYZ. Make a plan for the weekend. Rehearse what I'll say to my mother-in-law. Review the budget. Work on my job hunting strategy. Looks fine, right? Revising, preparing, reviewing. It's true that anticipating and preparing for the future is a natural and healthy function of the mind. The trouble is that some of us can be ultra-productive and organized people, but then we just keep going until those same mental processes lead to analysis paralysis, immobilizing perfectionism, indecision, and panic. For some of us, these actions are dangerously close to becoming overthinking. The trouble is that we can disguise rumination and overthinking as action and fool ourselves that endless rehearsal, research, and planning counts as doing something. Without knowing it, we cross the line from doing into thinking and then into overthinking. Where is that line? What's the difference between planning and overthinking? Healthy planning and preparation is constructive, time-limited, action-oriented, focused on possible solutions. Plain old overthinking is anxiety-driven, unending repetitive looping, passive, a poor substitute for action, focused on worst-case scenarios. The biggest difference? Healthy planning is action, or else it leads to action. Overthinking is never true action, and all it leads to is more overthinking. Are you creating a clear path to action? Have you got a clearly defined endpoint? A way to know when your action is accomplished? Is your thinking going anywhere towards action? If not, then you may no longer be planning but overthinking. When considering BA as a method for overcoming overthinking, we need to be honest about any tendency to get stuck in the weeds of rehearsal, reviewing, planning, researching, etc. It's tempting to avoid taking real action by escaping into busy work that looks like it's accomplishing something, but is really just more avoidance. If this sounds like you, well, don't worry. There are plenty of simple ways to keep yourself action-oriented and focused. Drill the "done is better than perfect" motto. Imperfect action beats perfect action that somehow never materializes. Stop seeing perfectionism as a high standard and start seeing it as an obstacle getting in your way. Instead of "is this perfect?" ask, what is the next step in the process? Set time limits for yourself. There is a place in life for rehearsing, planning, researching, preparing, etc. But these things are best in small doses. Allow yourself to review and plan, but for an allocated time only. Stay focused, set the timer, then stop when it goes off. Your thoughts should all point towards the same thing. What are you going to do with all this analysis? What can you control? You can't predict every outcome, and you certainly can't control every outcome. Narrow your focus down to those things that you can reasonably influence and find the discipline to set aside the rest. Just start. Planning and research are the world's most sophisticated avoidance strategies because they really do seem productive. You can even fool yourself that you're making progress, but remind yourself that you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. Let your planning focus on the next right step. That's all. Overthinking that is based on rehearsal and preparation is thinking that circles around the discomfort of uncertainty without ever facing it. It's a safety-seeking behavior. If I can perfectly predict the future, then I can control it and I can be safe. A scary thing might be coming, but I can outthink it. If I start, it's possible I'll fail, so I won't start just yet. Instead, I'll delay and think of ways to guarantee a good outcome. We need to notice this tendency in ourselves and consistently push against it so that we're cultivating a bias for action rather than a tendency to avoid, escape, or control. Action is one of the purest and most effective antidotes to overthinking. Are you trapped in planning, rehearsing, reviewing, revising? Pause. Become aware. Then push yourself to take just one tiny active step in the right direction. Overthinking is a habit, and habits have their own momentum. The more you overthink, the more you'll want to overthink. The more you withdraw, the easier it will be to keep withdrawing. The less you act, the harder it will feel to act. BA is not magic. It's just about turning the tide in the other direction. It's about giving yourself the chance to build up momentum in the other direction. Author Brad Stulberg says, "We think our being influences our doing, but it's often the other way around. Show up and take action on the things that matter to you, and see if your thinking and feeling follow." Ask yourself, who do I want to be in this life? What does a person like that do? Then, go and do that. Summary. Sometimes the thing that most reliably relieves anxiety is to stop trying to force a solution in the first place. With acceptance, we drop the endless struggle to fix and stop seeing our immediate experience as a problem to solve. Detach, allow the feeling, then rejoin life again. Mindfulness and meditation can be helpful for overthinkers. Done incorrectly, however, they can backfire and actually intensify anxiety. Guided meditations, sensory engagement, diffusion techniques, and embodied mindfulness techniques are great for overthinkers. You can also try body scans or mindful single-tasking moments throughout the day to build awareness without triggering overthinking. Overthinking is fed by excessive introspection. Break this cycle of passivity and withdrawal by re-engaging with the outside world. The solution to overthinking is not more thinking, it's mindful, meaningful action. Overthinking is sometimes underdoing. Behavioral activation sees that action precedes emotion and encourages us to re-engage meaningfully with our environment through action. We feel a sense of reward and fulfillment, then want to act again. Honestly appraise your current activity habits, revisit your values and goals, and then schedule mini activities to start building momentum. What the behavioral research consistently shows is that waiting for motivation is one of the least effective strategies available to someone dealing with anxiety or overthinking. A couple of things worth holding on to from today. Action precedes motivation, not the other way around. Starting before you feel ready isn't recklessness. It's how the feeling of readiness gets generated in the first place. And overthinking, when you look at it clearly, is often underdoing in disguise. Time spent in contemplation can feel productive while substituting for the real-world activity that would actually move things forward. Swap one for the other, even in small increments, and something shifts. This was Reclaiming Your Path from Nick Trenton's book, Stop Thinking About It, narrated by Russell Newton. We'll see you in the next one.